Okay, so we are going to start off this section by just talking about the coordinate plane and all of the pieces that go into that particular thing, because in this next couple of sections in your college algebra class you are going to be graphing, so we want to make sure that everybody is on the same page as what everything is meant or means on a graph or on a coordinate plane. So we're going to start off with this center piece right here. This is called the origin. It is the point 0, 0, and it is the point you should always start when you are graphing points. Okay, so this is kind of your big starting point for when you start graphing points. And if we go to the left and to the right, this particular line going across here horizontal is your x-axis. So we can label that here on both sides as your x-axis. Remember, your x-axis is positive as long as you're going to the right. It's negative when you go to the left. So positives on the right, negatives on the left. So then we can talk about our vertical axes, which is this one going up and down right here. This is your y-axis. Okay, and again, as you go up on your y-axis, that's your positive values. As you go down on your y-axis, that are your negative values. And then if you notice, the y-axis and your x-axis split your graph into 4 regions. We call those quadrants. We start up here in the upper right hand quarter. This is our first quadrant, or quadrant 1. We typically use Roman numerals to designate these, but if you don't want to use a Roman numeral, you can just use the number 1. We go counterclockwise, or we basically make a C to count off our coordinates, or our quadrants, excuse me. So this one right here would be quadrant 2. Then down here we have quadrant 3. And last we have our quadrant 4. Now, one of the things that you can do when you're graphing is to kind of use to check. There are only specific type of numbers that go into each quadrant. I shouldn't say numbers, let's say signs. So if I want to graph a point in quadrant 1, I know that I'm going to start at my origin and I'm going to move to the right. Since I'm moving to the right on all my x's, that means that all of my x's are positive. And then I would be moving up to get inside that quadrant. Since I'm moving up, that means all my y values are also positive. So every point that lies within the quadrant 1 has a positive x value and a positive y value. So everything is nice and pretty and positive. So for quadrant 2, think about this. When we graph in quadrant 2, we have to go to the left. Remember, anything to the left of my origin is negative, but I'm still moving up, so my x's will be negative, but my y's will still be positive. So everything in quadrant 2 has a negative value for your x and a positive value for your y. So for quadrant 3, that's this guy right down here, we would go to the left again, which is negative, and then we would go down, which is also negative. So everything in quadrant 3 has a negative x value and a negative y value. And for our very last quadrant, quadrant 4 right here, we're going to be going back to the right. So again, on our x's, that means our values are going to be positive, and we're going to be going down on our y's, so those values are negative. So this would be a positive x and a negative y. So you don't necessarily have to remember all of the signs and things of what the quadrant is. This is just a way for you to check your work. I want you to make sure you understand that every point that you get always comes in the format of x comma y. Okay, x always comes first, followed by y. You can think about it as alphabetical order. And again, remember that whenever you're talking about your x's, these are values that move either left if it's negative, or right if it is positive. And then your y values are always moving up for positive, down for negative. Basically, a point is just directions on how to get somewhere on your coordinate plane. So in the next video, we're going to talk about actually how to graph those points.